to do the wrap-up of my next 5 books, which would be books 46 through 50, which means I'm only 2 away. Two away from my Goodreads goal of the year, so I am very proud of myself for all the reading I've done. So let's jump right into the wrap-up. This wrap-up is going to be very laden with some Jennifer E. Smith books. So, spoiler alert, there's 3 of them. So the first book is This Is What Happy Looks Like by Jennifer E. Smith, and I listened to this book actually, and I had to return it to the library a long time ago. So anyway, this book follows Graham and Ellie. Graham, who is a teenage movie star, and Ellie, who is this girl from this small town, and you know, she just lives small town life and all this stuff. And just by chance, by crazy chance, Graham sends this email, and he accidentally misspells the email, and it ends up getting sent to Ellie. And of course, they just start emailing each other back and forth and become great pen pals and friends, and they really like each other, and yay! But Ellie has no idea that Graham is a movie star. And, you know, and then somehow Graham figures out where Ellie lives and decides that he is going to convince the producers to move the shoot for their next movie to be filmed in Ellie's small town. And so, of course, they can meet. And it's their story of meeting and all of that goes into the fact that Ellie finds out that Graham is a movie star. And Ellie has this sordid past, and it's full of drama. And yeah, so I ended up giving this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed it enough that I finished the story. I'm glad that I was listening to it. I don't know if I could have gotten through it by reading it. I really did find Ellie to be very passive and just not, I don't know, I just didn't like her as a character. And then there was an instance with her best friend, and her best friend decides to hate her and blah, blah, blah. And it just, to me, like, it was such a small thing that her friend gets mad at that I'm like, no friend who has been someone's best friend for years, not just like, you know, a couple months, but they've been best friends for, you know, most of their life, and this friend's just like, I'm done with you. And I just found that very unrealistic. And let's just talk about the fact that there's almost absolutely no possible way that if you misspell an email address that you're going to find someone else that has that email address that is misspelled and for someone to respond. I mean, especially in this day and age, like, you don't respond to random emails. You just don't. You just don't do that. So I would say if you have never read anything by Jennifer E. Smith, do not start with This Is What Happy Looks Like, because it's just not a good portrayal of her writing, and it's an okay story. It just wasn't. It was a really, really unbelievable. So, okay, so moving on to the next Jennifer E. Smith book, and that is The Statistical Probability of Love at First Sight. And this book follows Hadley? Yeah. This book follows Hadley and Owen. Hadley, you meet Hadley in the very beginning of the story, and she has just missed her flight by 4 minutes and is having to be put on to the next flight to London, which, of course, Owen is on that flight. And they, of course, are sitting sort of next to each other, and they start talking, and they talk throughout the entire flight, and, you know, and then they get to London, and all of this stuff happens, and, you know, all that. And so I enjoyed this story. I liked the story arc of Hadley. I liked that she wasn't just focused on this random guy that she met. She was really focused on the fact that she was going to London to see her dad and his new fiance get married, and she's never met this woman, and, you know, there's a past between her parents, and, you know, so she's still struggling with all of that goes into that. And so it is a lot of just her trying to deal with the life changes that are happening, and she just happens to meet this guy, and I liked that aspect. I didn't like the fact that we never got into Owen's mind, and we really didn't get to know him at all. Like, you get a little bit of who he is, and so because of that, I wasn't motivated like Hadley was to see him again. And it just, I don't know, like that aspect of it just, it just wasn't, I don't know. Yeah, so because you don't really get to know Owen, I was like, I don't really see what the draw to Owen is. And so I enjoyed it. I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars, 3 out of 5 stars, and I would definitely watch the movie. I think this would make a good, like, Lifetime Hallmark movie, and I would watch the movie. It was entertaining, and it was short, and so I got through it very quickly. So yeah, so that is the Statistical Probability of Love at First Sight. And oh my goodness, all of her titles are ridiculously long. Okay, and then the last Jennifer E. Smith book that I read is The Geography of You and Me. And this book follows Lucy and, this one is not Hadley and Owen. It is Hadley and Oliver. Hadley and Oliver. I'm so sorry. Because this book is Lucy and Owen. Okay, anyway, so this book follows Lucy and Owen. Lucy and Owen live in the same apartment complex. Lucy on like the 24th floor, and Owen, whose dad is a superintendent, he lives in the basement. And one day they are riding the elevator together, and the power throughout the entire city of New York has gone out. And they're stuck in the elevator with just the two of them for like 30, 45 minutes, and they start talking, and then they spend the rest of the day and night just wandering around the city and enjoying each other's company. And then right around the same time, they both leave New York City. Lucy to go across the Atlantic Ocean to Europe to meet with her parents, and Owen, who him and his dad start driving across the United States, and it's their story of where they are and what they're doing in each location, and them trying to stay connected with each other. And I liked the story. I liked their individual stories. I like that we get a little bit more of just character development and growth between the two of them, and that they are really trying to grow as individuals, and it really wasn't just focused on this relationship. The entire book wasn't just focused on Owen and Lucy, and there was definitely some, it was, definitely a plot point that was driven through the entire story, but it wasn't what was driving the entire book the entire time, and I really appreciated that. So I enjoyed it. I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Again, this is another one that I would watch the movie. I thought it definitely had good movie potential. It's not my favorite, but it was good. It was definitely, I think this is probably my second favorite of hers. So yes, that is The Geography of You and Me by Jennifer E. Smith. Okay, now moving on from Jennifer E. Smith books to the next book, and that is The School for Good and Evil by Simone Shinani. I'm really sorry. That's the name right there. Yes, so this book follows Agatha and Sophie, who are best friends in this small village. And every 4 years in this village, 2 children are taken, one for good and one for evil, to go into the school for good and evil and become fairy tale characters. And so Sophie, who is your quintessential princess. She is beautiful. She has long blonde hair. She loves pink and tries to be good and all of that stuff that goes into being a princess. And then you have Agatha, who isn't necessarily your quintessential, villain, but she wears a lot of black, and she lives on the outskirts of a cemetery, and she is a loner, and she really just likes to be around Sophie, and that is it. And so when Sophie and Agatha are taken, it is a surprise to both of them when Sophie is landed in the school of evil and Agatha is landed in the school of for good. And they think it's a complete mistake, and so you have Sophie, who is just trying to figure out how can she get back into the school for good, and Agatha is thinking, how can I get us out of here? And so I really just loved just the storyline aspect. You have Agatha, who's struggling in a world of people that she's just like, how are these people good? And then you have Sophie, who is struggling with like, oh my goodness, I'm surrounded by evil, but are they really evil? Or and so I just love the dynamics of the all the other characters that bring into the story, and you kind of just help just twist your thought process of what a fairy tale really is, and I really enjoyed that. I also enjoyed the friendship aspect between Sophie and Agatha. I loved that even though everyone around them was saying, you know, good and evil cannot be friends, they were determined to be friends, and even though they had their ups and downs, they were determined to really stand by each other, and I loved the aspect of friendship there. I loved it. I really loved that. And so I really recommend this story if you are looking for a good story for, you know, you like your 12, 13-year-old girl. I think boys will like it, but there are a lot of aspects of girliness to it. So I'm not really sure. And just depending on how well your child is at reading, because it is a almost 500-page book, but it is fairly simple and it's a good story, and I'm looking forward to continuing on in this series. Okay, and then the last book that I read, the last book that I'm going to talk about, is a book that I wasn't going to read, but I was convinced by a friend of mine that I need to read it to be able to really form my own opinion, and that is Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Okay, I'm not going to give you a synopsis of what this is because you know what it is because everyone has read it. So my thoughts of this book. I ended up giving this book a 2 out of 5 stars, not because I thought it was, you know, anything spectacular or anything great. The only reason why I did not get 1 star was because I couldn't put it down. I read it in one sitting. And again, not because I thought like, oh, I just have to know like how amazing the story is going to end. It was just, I just was entertained. It was so bad. It was entertaining. And I went into this book with the lowest of lows expectations. Like, I went into this book with lower expectations than I did with Twilight. I went into Twilight just totally believing this book is going to be just awful. And it wasn't awful, but it wasn't great. And so I went into this book believing that it was going to be worse. 10 times worse than Twilight. And it was. It was, but because I went into it those expectations, I was able to find the entertainment aspect of the story. And let's just say it's not a continuation of Harry Potter at all, whatsoever. It's not. So let's be honest with that. It really destroyed the magic system and the magic world that Rowling had built for the Harry Potter. It just is like, oh, all those rules? Pfft, forget it. We don't need rules. Threw those out. And then just the characters from the original Harry Potter books, they completely acted outside of their character arcs, even though, yes, it is like 18 years later, but they weren't acting the way that it just was very hard to believe that this is what the characters would be like 18 years later. So I'm glad I read it. I was just thinking that if you've only ever watched the movies of the Harry Potter books, you've never picked up one of the books, even if you've not even if you've just read the first one, like no, you haven't read any of them and you've just watched the movies, you would maybe see that this book was, oh, that's an interesting take on Harry Potter. That could be believable. Because the movies don't give you any of the magic system and any of the rules that, you know, J.K. Rowling really just puts into all of the books. And so it really does feel like the writers of this only watched the movies. They didn't watch any of the books and just took all of the rules and aspects of the movie into this writing the script. So, yeah, it wasn't like, I don't know, I wasn't angry about it because I was expecting it to be awful, and it was awful, but it was entertaining, and I was able to laugh, and I'm not even going to get into all of the aspects of the story because I think everyone has talked about them before. There was really no redeeming factor at all in this entire book. There really wasn't. I didn't like any of the relationships. I didn't like, I don't know, yeah, it was entertaining, and I was able to laugh, so, yeah. Okay, so those are the last 5 books that I have read. Guys, let me know down below what you thought, if you read any of these books, and yeah, that's all I got to say. So, guys, I hope you're having a great reading month, and I will see you on the flip side.